Michael, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day off here, and we have to talk about the news of the morning. Chargers firing head coach Brandon Staley and general manager Tom Telesco. Your reaction to, we talked about this on the pod on Thursday, saying that, hey, maybe this ends up happening at the end of the season, but maybe after last night, there was nothing that Dean Spanos could do, and he had to make the change.
Well, I think it was pretty clear. Once, midway through the first quarter of the game, you knew that was going to happen. I mean, the team played with no effort. The team played with no intensity. The team played with no competitiveness. It was over quickly. I think the Raiders knew it. There was a sense of confidence in the Raiders camp all week that they were going to be able to do that. We talked about it on the pod. We said that we didn't think that they were interested. And I think what really demonstrated itself watching the game was the players were playing for Herbert. Once he went down, they stopped playing. And, the greatest coach of all time, in 2021, when Pro Football Focus had him as the 12th best coach ahead of Mike Tomlin, and a lot of our network thought he was outstanding because he went for it on fourth down, has now gone away, and we'll see how many teams line up to hire him.
Michael, I understand the move with Staley, and it was overdue. Speak to us about the motivation behind firing Telesco. It can't be that he's done poor drafting. Is it tied to the fact of his choice of coaches, of Anthony Lynn and Staley? Or is this a move just to clear the table, maybe for if someone like Bill Belichick was available, that he could maybe come in and name his player personnel, GM person?
I think, to me, this move was really a reflection of Telesco's performance. I really do. The Chargers have this reputation of being unbelievably talented. And, they're really not. I mean, they have had some good drafts. They've got some really good players on their team, but they got a lot of guys that you have to go to the media guide and look up because you don't know where they came from or how they got there, and they don't play to the level. I think Telesco has been able to adhere to the narrative. This is a talented team, but this is a team that lacks toughness. This is a team that lacks talent besides their great quarterback.
Michael, it is interesting from a perspective, a betting perspective, to see a head coach get let go and a GM at the same time. And the future, if you're looking at the Chargers from a betting standpoint, you're right. I mean, the perception is out there that, gosh, the Chargers always have so much talent. And you think about the long list of GMs, Beathard, Butler, Smith, now Telesco, that the Spanos family has had. Why can't they get it right? They get it right to a certain level. But yet it's something that you can't rely on year in and year out when you're trying to bet the Chargers.
Well, I think they don't really understand what the real problem is, right? I mean, I think that's the issue. I wrote about it today for VSiN Online. I mean, to me, Dean Spanos, who had to watch that disaster, he lives in Vegas. I mean, he's going to have to walk around with all his buddies. He'll go to Sinatra's over at the Wynn for dinner many nights a week and have to listen to his buddies complain about his team. I mean, he's never really been able to understand what the root problem is. And if most people were to ask you what's the problem with the Chargers, they say, well, we need somebody to help Justin Herbert out. No, they need an experienced coach who can build a three-dimensional team, offense, defense, and the kicking game. Because in spite of all the nonsense that Belichick only wins with Brady, or that Don Shula only won with Brian Greasy,
Dan Marino. Yeah,
Dan Marino. Well, he didn't even win with Dan Marino. Never went to one Super Bowl. But the point here is you need a team. You need a complete team to win. You need all three phases working together. You need mental and physical toughness. See, I think the biggest issue with the Chargers they've been down this analytical road where, because he goes for it on fourth down, he becomes a hero to the analytical community. Football's a game of toughness. Football's a game of inspiring the players to play at a high level. Football's a game of connection between the head coach and the team. It's not always the most talented team that wins. The Houston Oilers would have had 20 Super Bowls because they were by far the most talented team. But they don't have any because they could never make that connection. They could never operate in a three-level way. And I think that's the biggest issue with the Chargers. And I think if Dean Spanos thinks he's going to go hire Ben Johnson to fix this problem, we're going to have this conversation 4 years from now because Johnson may be a great play caller, but he may not be able to build a team in the right way to go beat Andy Reid and go beat Sean Payton. Think about it, guys. If you're Mark Davis and you're Dean Spanos, you got two Hall of Fame coaches you got to beat just to get to the playoffs. Think about that.
Yeah.
You got to have two Hall of Fame coaches you got to beat just to get to the playoffs. How are you going to do that? Are you going to hire somebody from the Detroit Lions coaching staff with no coaching and head coaching experience to do that? I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, and we were talking about in the last segment that Sean Payton was interested in that job. They could have maybe hired him last season, and they decided to keep Brandon Staley after that playoff collapse. We're speaking with Michael Lombardi, VSiN, host of the Lombardi Line, also host of the GM Shuffle podcast, former NFL general manager. Well, Michael, then I guess if you were to attack and try to go after an established head coach, who would that coach be if you were to kind of advise Dean Spanos here? Is it Bill Belichick out there in New England? Is it maybe going to the college ranks and getting a Jim Harbaugh?
Yes, but I think certainly you got to look at Jim Harbaugh. You got to look at program builders. You got to look at program builders because the issue isn't Herbert's not playing good. The issue isn't we need new plays. The issue isn't in play design. The issue is in building a cohesive unit, building a great team. I mean, this doesn't necessarily have to limit itself to guys that are just in the NFL. I think you could look at Jim Harbaugh. You could look at some of the guys that have done a great job in college football and bring them in and let them do it. Look, Jimmy Johnson, who's the #1 advisor for Dean Spanos, he left college football, went to the Dallas Cowboys. He became a Hall of Fame coach. So you don't want to just limit yourself because, well, college coaches don't work out. Well, Urban Meyer and some of those guys don't work out. So I think you have to look at the landscape of the league, what's out there, and see somebody that fits, that has mental and physical toughness that they can instill in the team. Look, Joey Bosa doesn't play any games for 2 years. Like, do you wonder why they have so many injuries? Do you why they can't win close games? In 31 of the last 33 games, I think 33 games over the last 2 years have been decided by 7 points or less. They can't win a close game. Why is that? They lack toughness. And I think they got to find somebody who can instill that. And I don't think you can limit yourself just to NFL assistants or who is a former head coach.
Do you think, Michael, that Spanos will abandon the defensive-minded head coach choice he made with Staley and focus on an offensive-minded head coach? And the second part of this question is, would you, if you were advising Dean Spanos, advise him to talk to a person like Chris Peterson?
I would. I definitely would. That's exactly what I would do, is I'd talk to somebody that can come in and run a program. They hired Kellen Moore. There was a celebration when they hired Kellen Moore. I don't think Twitter was happier. I mean, it was unbelievable. He was unemployed. How many articles did I have to read? He was unemployed for 2 days. Has Herbert improved over last year to this year? I don't think so. So that tells you it's not about new plays. And I'm not picking on Kellen Moore. What I'm simply saying is the problem's deeper than just get a play caller in there. And I think that's something that you would have to look at. A pro experience is important, but if you're a good coach, you're going to get caught up to speed on pro experience if you have the right staff that fills in with you. And I think that's ultimately really important. Look, Anthony Lynn was a better head coach than Staley was. Nobody wants to admit that. It's a better record. The team was tougher. And I think, to me, that's where Dean Spanos has to identify his problem. Plus, he's got the bigger issue. How do I beat Peyton? How do I beat Reed?
Yeah. Michael, we got about 45 seconds. So just real quick, what you know about the league, and this is just the tip of the iceberg with what's going on with the Raiders, Carolina, certainly now the Chargers. What are the trends out there? What are you hearing in terms of, certainly Black Monday is going to be rapidly approaching. But in terms of trends and hiring trends, what are you hearing out there?
That's the hard one to figure out because I don't know how many great candidates there are.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the big issue. And I think the trend is maybe we're moving away from it. Look, David Shaw's available for Stanford. He could build a program. Maybe he's going to get a phone call. I think it's got to be somebody that can understand the game and kind of allow the team to grow and adopt his personality, not just be, hey, we're going to go for it on fourth down.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a coveted job, this Los Angeles Chargers job, with Justin Herbert, a franchise quarterback, already put into place.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.